Let me tell you about a man named Okonkwo. Not the famous one from the books, no, no. This Okonkwo was different. He was the kind of man who believed his fists were the answer to everything, the kind who thought being a man meant making everyone around him afraid. But by the time I finish telling you what happened to him, you'll understand that karma doesn't forget. It just takes its time. Okonkwo was 30 years old when he married Ngozi, his first wife. She was 19, fresh out of secondary school, with dreams of becoming a teacher. Her parents were poor, so when Okonkwo came with his bride price, they practically threw their daughter at him. "He has a good job at the timber company," her father said. "He will take care of you." What they didn't know was that Okonkwo had a darkness inside him, a rage that was always bubbling just beneath the surface, waiting for any excuse to explode. The first 3 months of marriage were peaceful. Okonkwo was on his best behavior, showing off his new wife to his friends at the beer parlor. "See my wife? Beautiful, obedient. This is how a real man chooses." Ngozi would smile shyly and lower her eyes, the way her mother had taught her. But then came that Wednesday evening. Ngozi had prepared jollof rice for dinner. She had spent hours cooking, making sure everything was perfect. The chicken was tender, the rice had the right amount of spice, the plantains were fried golden brown. She served it with pride, hoping to see her husband smile. Okonkwo took 1 spoonful and his face twisted. "What is this rubbish? Did you use salt at all, or are you trying to kill me with bland food?" Ngozi's heart sank. But I tasted it. It has salt, my husband." "Are you calling me a liar? Are you saying I don't know what I'm talking about?" No, I just meant—" The slap came so fast she didn't see it coming. Her head snapped to the side, and she tasted blood in her mouth. For a moment the world went silent. Then Okonkwo grabbed the plate and threw it against the wall. Rice scattered everywhere, like confetti at a terrible party. "Clean this mess and cook something edible, and next time don't talk back to me." That night, as Ngozi cleaned rice off the walls with tears streaming down her face, she told herself it was just once. He was stressed from work. It wouldn't happen again. But it did happen again, and again, and again. If the food was too hot, he would accuse her of trying to burn his mouth. Too cold, she was lazy and didn't care about him. If she laughed too much with the neighbors, she was flirting. If she was quiet, she was plotting something. There was no winning with Okonkwo. He had made up his mind that marriage meant he owned her, body and soul. The beatings became routine. Sunday after church because her wrapper wasn't tied properly, Tuesday morning because she woke him up too early, Friday night because he lost money gambling and needed someone to blame. The reasons didn't matter. Okonkwo just wanted to hit something, and Ngozi was there. The neighbors heard. Of course they heard. The walls were thin, and Ngozi's cries pierced the night air. But they did what people always do. They minded their business. "It's not our place to interfere," they would say, shaking their heads sadly while doing absolutely nothing. Ngozi's family lived far away in the village, so she had no one to run to. And even if she did, what would they say? Go back to your husband, be a better wife, try harder. This is what they always said to women like her. For 5 years, Ngozi endured. She became a shadow of herself. The bright-eyed girl who dreamed of teaching children became a frightened woman who flinched at sudden movements. Her smile disappeared. Her laughter died. She moved through life like a ghost haunting her own body. Then, one night, after a particularly brutal beating, Ngozi's body simply gave up. She went to sleep, and her heart just stopped. The doctor said it was cardiac arrest, but everyone who knew the truth understood. Her body had been broken too many times. Her spirit had suffered too long. She was only 24 years old. At the funeral, Okonkwo cried like a professional mourner, tears and snot running down his face, beating his chest, wailing, "My wife, my beloved wife, why have you left me?" The performance was so convincing that people who didn't know better actually felt sorry for him. But there was one person at that funeral who knew the truth. Her name was Ariaze, and she was Ngozi's cousin from the city. She had come only twice to visit, and both times she had seen the bruises Ngozi tried to hide. She had begged Ngozi to leave, but Ngozi was too afraid and ashamed. As Okonkwo threw himself dramatically on the coffin, Ariaze stood in the back, her eyes cold and calculating. She made a promise to herself that day. Okonkwo would pay for what he did to Ngozi. She would make sure of it. After the burial, Okonkwo observed a brief mourning period, 6 months to be exact. Then he started looking for wife number 2. He was careful this time. He went to a different town, far from anyone who might have heard about Ngozi. He told people his wife had died of malaria. Such a tragedy. He was a faithful husband, looking for someone to help him heal his broken heart. That's when he met Chidinma. Chidinma was 21, tall, graceful, with a quiet demeanor that made Okonkwo's chest swell with satisfaction. She came from a family of 8 children, and her father was eager to have one less mouth to feed. When Okonkwo showed up with his bride price, it was like Christmas came early. "My daughter is very gentle," his father assured Okonkwo. "She will never cause trouble. She will be a good wife to you." Okonkwo smiled. Perfect. Another submissive woman who would know her place. The wedding was small. Chidinma moved into Okonkwo's house with just 2 bags of belongings. From day one, she was everything he wanted. She cooked his meals on time. She kept the house spotless. When he spoke, she listened with her head bowed. When he raised his voice, she apologized even when she had done nothing wrong. 3 months passed peacefully. Okonkwo congratulated himself on his excellent choice. This wife knew how to behave. She understood that he was the head of the house. Then, slowly, he started testing her. A complaint here about the food, a shout there about the way she arranged his clothes. He watched to see if she would push back, argue, defend herself. She didn't. She just quietly apologized and fixed whatever he complained about. So Okonkwo pushed further. He started coming home late, smelling of alcohol and cheap perfume. He stopped giving her money for the market, forcing her to beg. He criticized everything she did, from the way she walked to the way she breathed. And Chidinma took it all with the same quiet acceptance. Her head stayed bowed, her voice stayed soft. She never complained, never argued, never cried where he could see her. Okonkwo became bolder. One evening he came home drunk and in a foul mood. Chidinma had prepared his favorite soup, but he barely looked at it. "This is what you serve me after I work all day to put a roof over your head? I'm sorry, my husband. What would you prefer?" Something about her calm tone irritated him. He stood up abruptly, grabbed the bowl, and threw it on the floor. "Cook something else and clean this mess." Chidinma looked at the soup spreading across the floor, then looked up at him. For just a second, Okonkwo thought he saw something flash in her eyes. But then she bowed her head again. "Yes, my husband." She cleaned the mess without a word. She cooked a new meal. She served it to him with a slight smile. And Okonkwo, drunk and satisfied with his power, ate and went to bed feeling like a king. What Okonkwo didn't know was that Chidinma wasn't what she appeared to be, not even close. You see, Chidinma was actually Adaze, Ngozi's cousin, the same Adaze who had stood at the funeral plotting revenge. She had spent a year preparing for this. She had changed her appearance, her name, her entire identity. She had researched Okonkwo, learned his habits, his preferences, his weaknesses. She had tracked him to the new town where he was looking for a wife and positioned herself perfectly in his path. When Okonkwo's matchmaker came to her family's compound, which wasn't even her real family, but people she had paid to play along, she had acted shy and demure. Everything she did was calculated, every bow of her head was planned, every soft-spoken word was part of the trap. And Okonkwo walked right into it. For 3 months, she had played the role perfectly, learning everything about him, where he kept his money, what time he left for work, which friends he trusted. She had become invisible in her obedience, which meant she could observe everything while he noticed nothing. Now, after that evening when he threw the soup on the floor, she knew it was time. Time to remind Okonkwo what he had done to Ngozi. Time to make him understand that actions have consequences. The next morning, Okonkwo woke up feeling groggy. His head was pounding from too much drink the night before. He tried to sit up, but found that he couldn't move. His arms and legs were tied to the bedposts with strong rope. He was spread-eagled on his own bed, completely helpless. What is this? Chidinma! Chidinma! I'm right here, my husband. Her voice came from the corner of the room. She stepped into view, but she looked different. She wasn't cowering or bowing her head. She stood straight, tall, with a cold smile on her face. What are you doing? Have you gone mad? Untie me now. Mad? No, I'm perfectly sane. For the first time since I entered this house, I'm being completely honest. She pulled a chair close to the bed and sat down, crossing her legs casually. Let me introduce myself properly. My name is not Chidinma, it's Adaze, and Ngozi, your first wife, was my cousin. The blood drained from Okonkwo's face. What are you talking about? Oh, don't pretend you don't remember Ngozi, sweet, gentle Ngozi, who you beat for 5 years until her body gave up, the wife whose death you cried over so dramatically at her funeral, the woman you murdered with your fists, even though no court would ever say so. That was different. She was what? Disobedient? Disrespectful? Let me guess, she deserved it? Okonkwo struggled against the ropes, but they held firm. You can't do this. This is kidnapping. I'll report you to the police. Adaze laughed. It was not a nice laugh. Report me? With what evidence? You think anyone will believe that your wife tied you up? They'll just laugh and say the mighty Okonkwo has been tamed by a woman. Besides, I haven't done anything illegal yet. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the morning sun. Do you know what I've been doing these past 3 months, Okonkwo, besides playing the perfect wife? I've been gathering evidence. I found Ngozi's diary. Yes, she kept a diary, and she documented everything you did to her, every slap, every punch, every night she went to bed in pain. I've made copies and distributed them to certain people, journalists, lawyers, human rights activists. If anything happens to me, those documents go public. Your name will be destroyed. You're lying. Are I? Try me. But first, let me tell you what's going to happen. I'm going to keep you here for 3 days. 3 days during which you'll experience what it's like to be completely powerless, to be at someone else's mercy, to be afraid. And that's exactly what she did. For 3 days, Okonkwo stayed tied to that bed. Adaze brought him food and water, but only enough to keep him alive. She didn't beat him. She was smarter than that. Instead, she talked to him. Hour after hour, she told him about Ngozi, about the girl she had been before marriage, full of dreams and laughter, about how she had changed month by month, year by year, under Okonkwo's fists. about the last time Adaze had visited and found Ngozi crying in the kitchen with a black eye and a split lip. "She told me she was fine," Adaze said on the second day, her voice breaking slightly. "She made excuses for you even as you were killing her. And I believed her because I wanted to, because it was easier than facing the truth." Okonkwo said nothing. What could he say? Everything she was saying was true. On the third day, Adaze untied him. Okonkwo's arms and legs were stiff and sore. He could barely move. He lay there, weak and humiliated, while she stood over him. "I could kill you right now," she said calmly. "I could do to you what you did to Ngozi, break you piece by piece until you give up. But I'm not won't. Do you know why?" Okonkwo shook his head weakly. "Because I'm not you. I'm not a coward who needs violence to feel powerful. Instead, I'm going to do something worse. I'm going to let you live, but your life is going to change starting now." She pulled out a stack of papers and dropped them on his chest. "These are bank statements. I've transferred all your money to accounts you can't access. I've contacted your employer with evidence of your abuse. They're letting you go effective immediately. I've spread word around this town about what you did to Ngozi. Try getting another job here. Try finding another woman to marry. Everyone knows who you are now." Okonkwo's eyes widened in horror as he flipped through the papers. She wasn't bluffing. His accounts were empty. His reputation was destroyed. "You've ruined me," he whispered. "No," Adaze corrected. "You ruined yourself. I just made sure everyone else could see it. Now here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this house. It's in my name now, by the way. I made sure to forge your signature on some documents while you were drunk. You're going to leave this town, and you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing that a woman outsmarted you, outplayed you, and left you with nothing." She leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "And if I ever hear that you've laid hands on another woman, I will find you, and next time I won't be so merciful. Do you understand?" Okonkwo nodded, tears streaming down his face. The mighty man who had terrorized his wife was crying like a child. Adaze straightened up. "Good. Now get out of my house." Okonkwo stumbled out of the house that day with nothing but the clothes on his back. The neighbors watched in confusion as the man who had moved in with confidence and pride shuffled away like a broken man. Word spread quickly through the town. At first, people didn't believe it. Okonkwo, the timber company supervisor? Impossible! But then the evidence started circulating. Ngozi's diary, photos of her injuries that Adaze had found hidden in Okonkwo's belongings, testimonies from neighbors who had heard the beatings but said nothing. The town turned on him. His friends at the beer parlor spat at his feet. Former colleagues crossed the street to avoid him. Mothers pulled their daughters away when he walked past. He had become a pariah, unwelcome everywhere. Okonkwo tried to start over in a new town, but Adaze's reach was long. Somehow, wherever he went, people knew. The man who killed his wife with his fists, the abuser, the monster. He couldn't escape his past. He took whatever work he could find, washing dishes, cleaning gutters, carrying loads at the market, the jobs no one else wanted. His body, once strong from good food and easy living, became thin and weak from hard labor and poor meals. His hands, which had once dealt out pain so freely, became calloused and scarred from menial work. Years passed. Okonkwo aged badly. His hair turned gray early, his back bent from years of bowing and scraping for any employer who would take him. He lived in a tiny room in the worst part of town, barely surviving day to day. One evening, 10 years after everything fell apart, Okonkwo was sitting outside his room eating a meager dinner of gari and water when a fancy car pulled up. A woman stepped out, elegant and successful looking. It took him a moment to recognize her. Adeze. She looked at him without sympathy or satisfaction, just a cold assessment of what he had become. "Hello, Okonkwo." He couldn't meet her eyes. "Adeze, I heard you were here. I wanted to see for myself." She looked at the peeling walls of his room, his threadbare clothes, the way he hunched over his food like he was afraid someone would take it. "How does it feel?" "How does what feel?" Being powerless, being at the mercy of the world, having nothing and no one. Okonkwo was quiet for a long moment. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "I'm sorry for what I did to Ngozi, for everything. I know it doesn't matter now, but I'm sorry." Adeze studied him. The apology was too late, of course, too late for Ngozi, who had died alone and afraid, too late for all the years of suffering, but at least he had finally said it. "Do you know what the worst part is, Okonkwo? Ngozi loved you. When you first married her, she actually loved you. She thought you were her hero, her protector, and you destroyed that love piece by piece until there was nothing left but fear." Tears ran down Okonkwo's weathered face. I know. If I could go back. But you can't. That's the thing about choices, Okonkwo. Once you make them, you have to live with the consequences. And your consequence is this." She gestured at his poverty, his isolation, his broken life. "This is your karma." She turned to leave, then paused. "I'm not going to say I forgive you because I don't, but I will say this. I hope you've learned something. I hope every day you wake up in this place you remember why you're here, and I hope it hurts." Adeze got back in her car and drove away, leaving Okonkwo alone with his guilt and his memories. The story of Okonkwo spread throughout the region, becoming a cautionary tale that mothers told their children. "Treat people with kindness," they would say, because karma never forgets. "Look at Okonkwo, who thought he was untouchable. Where is he now?" And fathers would tell their sons, "Strength is not about overpowering those weaker than you. Real strength is in protecting, not destroying. Be a man, not a monster." Okonkwo lived for another 15 years after that encounter with Adeze. 15 years of poverty and loneliness, 15 years of being avoided and despised, 15 years of remembering what he had lost and what he had done. When he finally died, alone in that small room, only 3 people came to his burial. 3 people who didn't know him well, but felt sorry for any human being dying alone. There were no tears shed, no eulogies given. No one claimed him as father, brother, or friend. His grave was unmarked, in the corner of the cemetery where they buried the forgotten and the unwanted. Just another name in the register, another body in the ground. Nothing to show he ever existed except for the stories people told about what not to become. Meanwhile, Adeze had built a successful organization helping women escape abusive relationships. She had turned her pain and anger into something productive, something that saved lives. She never married, never wanted to. Her life's work became Ngozi's memorial. Every woman saved was a victory over men like Okonkwo. On the anniversary of Ngozi's death each year, Adeze would visit her grave with fresh flowers. She would sit by the headstone and tell her cousin about all the women they had helped that year. "We're winning, Ngozi," she would whisper. "Little by little, we're changing things. You didn't die for nothing."
And perhaps that was the real lesson of Okonkwo's fall. It wasn't just about one man's punishment. It was about the women who refused to stay silent, about the ones who fought back, about the society that slowly, painfully began to acknowledge that violence in the home was not a private matter, but everyone's concern. The village where Okonkwo had first lived with Ngozi eventually put up a memorial for Ngozi, a small plaque near the women's center that read, "In memory of Ngozi and all women silenced by violence, may we never look away again." And people didn't look away anymore. When they heard screams from a neighbor's house, they called the police. When they saw bruises on a woman's face, they asked if she needed help. When men raised their fists, they intervened instead of making excuses. Change came slowly, too slowly for Ngozi and the countless women like her, but it came. As for Okonkwo, his story became the nightmare that young men were warned about. "Don't be like Okonkwo" became a common saying. Parents used his name to teach their children about consequences and karma. He had wanted to be remembered as powerful, as a man to be feared and respected. Instead, he was remembered as a warning. And perhaps that was the justice he deserved. Not a quick death or dramatic punishment, but a long, slow fall from grace. A lifetime of knowing what he had destroyed and living with the weight of his actions. A legacy not of strength, but of shame. Because, in the end, that's what happens to bullies and abusers. They think they're building power, but they're actually building their own prison. Every blow they strike, every tear they cause, every life they damage, it all comes back. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. Karma keeps perfect records. And Okonkwo learned, too late, that the universe always balances its books.